Before we begin, I'd like to ask you for a small favor. I'm working really hard to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. It's a truly important milestone for me. Please click the subscribe button on the channel. It's just one click, but it gives me massive motivation to keep making more videos. Thank you all so much. This year, we're having a small, intimate Christmas Eve. You know how it is. The words hit me like a plate someone had just smashed against a wall. The phone, pressed to my ear, suddenly felt heavy, as if it weighed as much as all the previous years combined. I stood in the kitchen, my hand resting on the counter, looking at the pot of borscht that, just moments before, had been quietly winking at me with its bubbles. So, not again? I asked, though we both knew it was a rhetorical question. On the other side, that characteristic silence fell, the kind where you can hear everything. A plate being moved, someone's laughter in the background, the TV volume set too high. Their holidays had already begun. Don't take it personally. It finally came. You know it's nothing personal. Nothing personal. For the 5th time in a row, I hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't slam the phone down. Phones don't do that anymore, but something inside still shattered with a bang. I placed the phone on the table. The kitchen suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too meticulously clean, like a museum of someone's life, stuck mid-sentence. It was Christmas Eve. Outside, the snow lay even, almost demonstratively beautiful. Neighbors bustled with shopping bags. Someone carried in a Christmas tree. Another laughed in the stairwell. The world operated according to a script where my role was written in fine print. The 5th time. If this were a game, someone would say, statistics. If it were a TV series, a recurring plotline. Since it was my life, it was called, You'll Get Used to It. I put on water for dumplings, though there were only a dozen or so left in the box. Just enough for one person who hadn't been invited by accident. I set the table. 1 plate, 1 candle, 1 chair, an empty place setting. Yes, for a touch of cosmic humor. I sat down, glanced at the clock. 5:12 p.m. At this hour, they were probably already breaking the wafer. I was always the one who would arrive late, the one who would bring something, the one who would understand. Now, I was the one they'd forgotten, and somehow, no one noticed the difference. The phone vibrated, a notification from a real estate portal I'd once visited out of pure curiosity. An algorithm knows no mercy, nor holidays. A house in the mountains, panoramic view, private road, price, $5 million. I laughed, out loud, to myself. It was so absurd it was almost comforting. I clicked. The photos loaded slowly, as if the world wanted to prepare me for what I was about to see. Wood, glass, snow, silence, a fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows, no neighbors, no table where someone decided if I'd fit. Well, well, I murmured. He would have invited me. The borscht boiled over. A red drop trickled down the hob like an ironic commentary on my thoughts. I wiped it away without haste. I wasn't in any rush. No one was waiting for me. I scrolled through the gallery again, a 3rd, 4th, 5th time. I stopped at a photo of the living room, a large window. Beyond it, mountains. The kind that don't ask questions like, but why are you alone? The kind that simply exist. The phone vibrated again. This time, a message. Don't be angry. Fine. I didn't reply. Instead, I swiped my finger across the screen with a completely different motion. Save offer. My heart beat faster. For the first time that evening, not from regret, I looked at the table, the candle, the chair, and then at the screen where the mountains stood unperturbed. They hadn't invited me for the 5th time, and for the first time, I felt that perhaps this was the last time I would wait for an invitation. The 2nd candle burned down faster than the first. I left it alone at the table, a symbol of the whole situation. It was destined to go out without witnesses. I was already standing in the hallway, coat draped over my shoulders, keys in hand, though I had no intention of going anywhere, at least not physically yet. On the phone screen, the same offer glowed motionlessly, a house in the mountains. A price that for many was beyond imagination. For me, a decision threshold. $5 million. For years, I'd heard that money doesn't solve problems. Well, it doesn't invite you to Christmas Eve, but it can buy silence, and that, it turned out, was priceless. I sat on the floor, my back against the shoe cabinet. I didn't need a sofa or a dignified pose. I needed a moment when no one expected anything from me. With my finger, I zoomed in on the photo of the private road leading to the house. White, empty, without tire tracks. As if someone had just erased the past and left only possibility. The agent called. I answered before I could change my mind. "Good afternoon. I see you're interested in the property in the Beskids," came a calm, practiced, but unobtrusive voice. "Yes," I replied. I surprised myself with how confident it sounded. "Please tell me, is the house available immediately?" A moment of pause. Keyboard clicks. "Yes. The owner prefers a quick transaction." Quick. I liked that word. It left no room for family discussions and quiet sabotage. "I want to see it," I said. Even today, the agent hesitated. It was Christmas Eve, after all, but clearly, money had its own calendar. We agreed on the following morning. I hung up, and only then did I feel my hands trembling. Not from fear, but from relief. The phone vibrated one more time. A group photo. A table laden with food. Faces leaning towards the lens, captions like, "Family is a treasure." I was out of frame, literally and figuratively. I didn't reply. Instead, I went into the bedroom and started packing a travel bag, the one I used for weekend trips. A sweater, jeans, warm socks, documents, laptop, cards. Everything truly important fit surprisingly easily. The rest, souvenirs, my grandmother's dishes, decorations, suddenly seemed unnecessary, as if they belonged to a version of me who was still waiting for an invitation. I sat on the bed and wrote one message, short, economical with words, rich in meaning. "I am safe. I need time. Do not look for me." I sent it not to one person, but to everyone at once. Group message, just like sending group greetings. Symmetry can be cruelly satisfying. I turned off the phone. For the first time in years, without guilt. Silence fell immediately, as if it had been waiting for it. The kind that doesn't ring, doesn't remind, doesn't ask. The night was black and dense. I went out onto the balcony. The air stung my cheeks, but it was clean. I thought about the house in the mountains, the fireplace, the trackless road, the table where I wouldn't have to explain why I came alone. I fell asleep dressed, my travel bag leaning against the bed. I was supposed to leave in the morning, but in reality, I had already left the moment I clicked call instead of ignore. The second candle extinguished itself, without a farewell, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was losing something. Dawn arrived without haste, without an alarm clock, without reminders, without the feeling that I should be somewhere else earlier. I opened my eyes, and for a moment didn't know where I was, and then a wave of peace washed over me. The apartment was quiet, almost no longer mine. The bag stood by the door, ready, like a loyal dog that doesn't ask where to, just goes. I made the simplest coffee possible. No fine china for Christmas, no tableware brought out only for show. In a regular mug with a chip on the rim. It tasted better than all the Christmas Eve compotes combined. I walked through the apartment, touching things for the last time, not with regret, but with curiosity, as if they belonged to someone else. I turned off the lights, closed the door. The key jingled in my pocket. It sounded like a decision. The road to the mountains was empty. The asphalt, damp from the night frost, shimmered under the wheels. The radio was silent. I turned it off deliberately. I didn't want carols, memories, voices telling me how things should be. I wanted to see how they were. Every kilometer shed something unnecessary from me. Other people's expectations, unspoken grievances, the eternal, "you could have." When I turned onto the private road, I understood the photos hadn't lied. The snow lay undisturbed, like a blank page. The house emerged from behind the trees suddenly, without fanfare, large, simple, quiet, without a fence, without private property signs, as if it knew it didn't need to deter anyone. The agent was already waiting. He smiled professionally, but quickly fell silent when we entered. Sometimes, nothing needs to be said. The fireplace, not yet lit, smelled of wood. The windows let in light so pure it hurt the eyes. The mountains stood opposite, patient and indifferent to my story. And there was something comforting in that. "It's quiet," the agent said, as if surprised. "That's why," I replied. I didn't ask hundreds of questions. I knew. There are moments when a decision is made deep within, long before it's spoken. We went through the formalities at the kitchen counter, still cold. A signature, a second, a third. The amount vanished from the account in a second. In exchange, I received the keys, heavy, metal, real. I laid them on my palm and felt something akin to a quiet, mature triumph. When the agent drove away, the house again fell into silence. This time, it was mine. I opened the window. The cold air rushed in without asking. I smiled. I lit the fireplace. The fire crackled lively, as if wanting to tell me all the stories no one had listened to before. In the evening, I set the table, one plate, one chair, but there was no sadness in it. There was intention. The dinner was simple: bread, cheese, wine. I sat facing the window. Mountains instead of people. Silence instead of conversations. A silence that didn't judge. The phone lay switched off in the bag. I knew that somewhere far away, someone would eventually ask why. But I already knew the answer. Because when they don't invite you to Christmas Eve for the 5th time, it's not an oversight. It's information, and you can finally treat it seriously. That night, I didn't disappear. I appeared in my own life on my own terms. 3 months passed. The snow in the mountains melted slowly, without haste, just as I learned a new rhythm of life. Mornings here began differently. Not with the phone, not with checking who had posted something and who had forgotten about me. They began with light, with silence, with a cup of coffee drunk by the window with a view that didn't demand any roles from me. The house turned out to be more than just a place. It was a decision I confirmed daily with small gestures, lighting the fireplace even on warmer days, walking barefoot on the wooden floor, with a silence I no longer feared. Sometimes I invited a few, genuine people. Sometimes I invited no one, and both choices were good. I turned on the phone only after weeks. The messages came in a flood. Questions, surprise, guilt disguised as concern. I didn't answer immediately. I no longer reacted impulsively. Answering ceased to be an obligation. It became a choice. One message, however, came back more often than others. "We miss you. Maybe you'll come for the holidays?" I read it several times. Without anger, without triumph, without the need to prove anything, I replied briefly, "We'll see." And that was all there was to it. The next Christmas Eve, it was I who turned on the light in the house, which stood silently among the fir trees. It was I who set the table, no longer out of habit, but with intention. There were 2 places. Not because one more was missing, but because I had learned to leave space. Not every story of disappearance ends with a return. Not every decision needs to be explained. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is to leave when no one notices you're still standing at the door. And I was no longer waiting for an invitation. If this story has touched a quiet chord within you, leave a heart or a comment. Doesn't courage sometimes begin with leaving? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories about choices that change everything, even if they start with a single painful one. They didn't invite me.